it's a person that I've been hearing about a lot lately, but I've never actually known that to exist.
Yeah, he's the pastor, the one who's most suspiciously died, but it's probably suicide anyways. He's been getting a lot of issues lately. So. The guy in front of us? No. The guy behind us, yes.
No, I know.
Okay.
But
I've heard. Yeah, I've heard.
what?
Isn't that crazy how Pastor John Paul Miller has had a lot of run-ins with a lot of people over the past 8 years apparently, and that most recent run-in with that guy you just watched, it happened on May 7th, 2024, and that wasn't even his latest run-in with people. Whew. JP, as they call the beleaguered pastor who recently lost his wife to suicide, allegedly, he made sure to stay out of the frame of the cops' dash cam camera, but you can still hear the cops talking about him when the cops are inside the vehicle. It's kind of crazy how one cop said to the other cop he's heard a lot about this guy. He didn't know who JP was, but he definitely found out by May 7th. A lot of issues apparently, ironically, with JP and not the hapless guy in front of him who you can see on camera. Now we're going to talk about that run-in later. I want to go in chronological order, just reading the highlights of all these police reports I received today from the Horry County government in South Carolina. Indeed, today as a result of my FOIA, I've sent in so many FOIAs, they gave me 8 years worth of police reports. That's a whopping 37 PDF files and 1 dashcam video. If you want to read along with me, as always, just go visit the links below to Patreon. You can read the PDFs and you can watch the raw video. I'll just put it up over there. Granted, a lot of it is just dashcam. You can't hear what the guy's saying as much as I tried. I transcribed for this video the portions I could hear. Unfortunately, in South Carolina, they don't give us body cam video, so dash cam video it is. Now I'm going to read these police reports to you, and the first thing I thought about is turnabout is fair play. Turnabout is fair play when it comes to John Paul Miller. He ended up finding a tracker on his truck and cameras in his yard, and sadly, you're going to hear about the plethora of times that JP, his ex-wife Allison, and Micah all called the police. We're going to hear about claims that Micah was beaten, strangled. You know, that made me think one of the number one indicators of whether a wife would end up losing her life to her husband is strangulation. Well, these are the police reports, and what's a trip is that cop who told the other cop in the beginning that it was a suspicious death, but it was ruled a suicide anyway, and he's talking about why they are having issues as a result. More on that later. Let's go in sequential order. All these PDFs so we can get a complete picture of this man they call JP. How we'll go through all these incident reports of Micah being hospitalized, JP dealing with his ex-wife, even his children. It just gets so sad. I think JP is losing it, and that guy in the beginning, supposedly JP told the police he was following him around and waving a gun. Well, spoiler alert, I'll just tell you right now, the cops didn't find any weapons in the car. That could have turned out deadly. But it seems to me that everything JP put Micah through, according to these police reports, is coming back on his own head. He's going to be calling the cops railing against a TikToker, someone who's accusing him of running a cult. There's all this stuff. But boy, it was that tracker found on his truck that got me. JP better be glad that he hasn't found any razor in his tire like his wife Micah found. But let's start at the very beginning. As they say in The Sound of Music, a very good place to start. I can't sing like Julie Andrews, but I wish. What you're about to hear is me reading the highlights. I only received that one dashcam video and all these PDFs, which you can go to Patreon and download if you want. I did not receive, as of yet, Wednesday, July 17th, any more 911 calls. So hopefully, I don't know how many additional 911 calls Horry County will give me. You can find the link to this playlist, this podcast below. You guys know I've been following it since the end of April, or beginning of May, technically, really, whenever one of my viewers sent me an email saying, you've got to check this out. This pastor gave this weird announcement claiming his wife had a self-induced death. He announced it one Sunday this year in April over the pulpit and kind of told everyone what to do after this long jokey sermon and had his congregation just walk out and don't talk about it. Well, since then I've been all over it and I've been trying to get whatever FOIAs I can. So I remember with Horry County, I paid a $50 deposit against a $200 estimate for a whole bunch of stuff. Now, maybe they'll give me the 911 calls related to these reports after I'm invoiced for the remaining $150 and I pay that. We'll see. I don't know. I've got so many public records requests out there. I just throw them out, praying Jesus that I'll get stuff, and then I get stuff in my inbox. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Allison Williams was previously married to JP, John Paul. They divorced on September 14, 2015, and they have 4 children. Technically, John Paul's oldest son, who's the spitting image of him, he's a product of a prior relationship, Logan Ryan Hardy, and he's had troubles of his own. So let's just start as 2015 as a baseline, because the first report they've given me here is dated April 16th, 2016, and it has JP's name on it. Likely it's regarding a child he has with Allison, because JP and Micah weren't even married back then yet. It's sad. It says a juvenile was upset that his dad threatened to take his phone away and not let him get ice cream. The responding officer had eyes on the juvenile. He was 10-4 eating his ice cream. So it's pretty sad to me that this very first report involves one of JP's sons. And there's a lot of redactions if you do get these reports. You'll just see like black marks like that on the screen. So on April 16th, 2016, the CAD notes, as they call them, says, check for a blank-year-old male. He's staying with his father at this address. The caller's at work. Okay, so it must be his mom who called. The caller's at work. She just received a message from blank to come pick him up. So I guess her son wanted her to pick him up. He claimed that his dad and him were in an argument and he wanted to go home. Now the father, John Blank Miller, I don't know why they just redacted the Paul, is refusing to let her speak to her son, their son, and claims his phone no longer works. She just wants to make sure everything is 10-4, wants an officer to call her before he goes out. Now that's pretty sad. John Paul's ex-wife had to get the cops to intervene because John Paul was getting into an argument with his son. I don't know how old his son was then. John Paul couldn't even, keep that dialogue, argument, relationship within the home. The child had to call his mom, and then John Paul allegedly is saying, you can't speak to your son. No, he won't even let his son's mother speak to him, and is claiming his phone no longer works. Again, in the notes, check for the mail. He's staying with his father. Per this officer, he will be going to Cold Stone Creamery in Market Commons at DeVille Avenue to check on the child. The juvenile was upset that his dad threatened to take his phone away and not let him get ice cream. The reporting officers had eyes on the juvenile. He was 10-4 eating his ice cream. Child is fine. Enjoy ice cream. It's sad. That's the very first call. April 2016. This is after they divorced in 2015. I don't like the fact that JP, being this pastor, and he should know the verse, fathers, don't exasperate your children, and just don't push them to the edge. There's ways to try and do positive motivation if you can, instead of like forcing your ex-wife to call the cops to see is everything okay because JP won't even let her talk to her own child and is claiming his phone is broken. That's just sad. Now, that same year, 2 weeks before Christmas, in 2016, JP called the cops about harassing phone calls from his ex-wife's boyfriend. It's wrong of me, but I kind of like this. I guess I like the fact that his ex-wife Allison, had some muscle, beside her. She had a boyfriend to say, look, man, stop harassing your ex-wife. We've heard the stories. They're going to talk about how closely his ex-wife lives to JP and how JP allegedly, I heard somewhere, he allegedly poisoned some tree so he could see her better, and there's all these harassing things that were allegedly done. We all saw that video where JP was like laid out, falling on the grass, pretending to be like freaking out back when, around the time he was breaking up with his wife. Okay, this is right before Christmas, December 14th, 2016, harassing phone calls from ex-wife's boyfriend. If you do download the PDFs, some of them are duplicates, so you'll just kind of see like an incident brief report, and then you might see the actual incident report. Some of the brief reports hardly have anything on them, and some of the incident reports have a lot more details. So what I requested was everything regarding Micah and John Paul Miller at his Coldwater Circle home, and at one point Micah lived there too, and then Micah at her apartment. So now more details on this December 14th, 2016 incident. The reporting officer responded to above incident location in reference to harassment. On arrival, reporting officer met with the victim. This is apparently JP calling the cops. The victim stated he had made contact with his soon-to-be ex-wife at their child's bus stop. The victim stated the two engaged in a verbal altercation. The victim stated later in the day the boyfriend of the ex-wife, known as Blank, called him cursing and threatening him about further contact with his ex-wife. The victim stated he hung up the phone and had the subject blocked from calling him. The victim requested documentation of this incident. Good for that boyfriend for standing up for Allison. It's just sad to me what an apparent hard time JP gave his ex-wife and Micah, and that's why I wanted to go through all 8 years of this as quickly as I possibly can to show you how the harassment and the brouhaha, just the turmoil, the discord, how it all ramped up, and like it culminating with Micah dying, and then even beyond that, how JP seemingly is getting his comeuppance. Things are being exposed, his actions, what kind of man he is, how he's treated his wife, both wives, and children. But I kind of like the fact Allison had a boyfriend, at least in 2016, to stand up for her. You know, if they're meeting at the child's bus stop, JP and Allison, and they're verbally arguing, she's giving it right back to him probably as much as she's getting it. And then her boyfriend later says, "Look, man, don't talk to my woman that way, I guess." I'm adding stuff here from my mind. Now, the very next year, February 21st, 2017, there's some kind of burglary. Now, I believe this involves JP. It's at the Coldwater Circle home. The cop responded on February 23, 2017, in the Myrtle Beach section of Horry County. Reporting officer responded to a burglary call at the above referenced address. Reporting officer met with complainant, who stated that he was out of town from February 18th until February 22nd, 2017. The complainant did not notice anything out of the ordinary when he got home until February 23, 2017. The complainant checked his emails, and he received an email stating that there were purchases made on February 21st from Blank's iPhone that were at the complainant's house. Complainant stated that the phones were password protected, and the only people that knows the passwords are him and Blank. Complainant went to look for the phones and noticed that one was dead and the other had been moved. Later, the complainant noticed that his laptop had been gone through and all of his history had been deleted. That's so interesting. Complainant suspects this was done by Blank, who had Blank the time he was out of town, but has no proof. Complainant also has 2 roommates that live with him, but were at work during the day and could have possibly left the front door unlocked. Complainant has provided proof of the purchases that were made, but not exact times. Reporting officer attempted to make contact with the claimed suspect, but had negative results. Reporting officer has no further info at this time and no action taken. So by this time it's 2017. This is February 2017. Micah and JP didn't get married until November of that year, but I'm wondering if she might have already lived with JP, because we know she had gotten the breast enhancement, and they lived together before they got married. I don't know who the other alleged roommate is, and I don't know if Micah was out of town with JP, so who could have gone in his house, done these things, purchased something from his iPhones. I don't know who he's accusing of this. I don't think anyone ever got arrested for it, but I do find it interesting. Someone with, I guess, a lot of knowledge of who JP was. Maybe they were searching for evidence. On February 23rd, 2017, cops have a little incident brief report. That's only because that's the day that JP noticed that prior incident. Now we move on to March 7th, 2017. JP is going to claim someone is sending him threatening messages, text messages. This is probably regarding child support because they're talking about money. So, on February 7th, 2017, at approximately 2300 hours, so this is close to midnight, Officer Fletcher responded to that Coldwater Circle home in the Myrtle Beach section of Horry County in reference to harassing phone messages. Upon arrival, contact was made with the complainant. They're calling him E1. Just think E1 is JP. JP advised that blank sent him threatening messages. I'm assuming he means his ex-wife. JP advised that he has ongoing issues with blank, an ex-wife, and blank regularly messaging him threatening things. The messages were reviewed, and E2, whoever that is, sent messages regarding blank paying blank the money he owes her, or E2 was gonna beat up JP. Allison's boyfriend perhaps, or could it be her oldest son? We don't know, it's all blanked out. Someone was messaging JP to pay, most likely Allison, the money that JP owes her, or JP was going to get beat up. JP advised these issues are ongoing and that JP also, they have E1 twice here, that these issues are ongoing and that someone also damaged his vehicle in the past. JP advised that someone has threatened him over the phone several times over a 2-year period, but has never acted on the threats. The threats were deemed empty in nature. JP advised that he wanted the incident document and wanted law enforcement to contact someone and have a word with him. So JP must be saying, okay, police, go, you guys call my ex-wife's boyfriend or whoever this is and have a word with him. Contact was made with E2, whoever that is, and blank at a certain freshwater court place. This person advised that he had threatened someone but was just mad at him and had no intentions of carrying out said threats. E2 and blank were advised to cease contact with JP if the contact was going to cause additional issues. Nothing further. So that was it for that incident. There's so many incidents. So after those threatening messages, that happened March 7th. Now, Micah and John Paul Miller got married November 7th, 2017. So this is important for the timeline. So I guess all must have been good at first. We see more police reports in relation to JP's house coming down the pipeline. March 7th, 2017. It's weird how the incident brief report sometimes gives us more information than the other report. Now this report claims that JP called the cops that March 7th, 2017 day to say his son, blank, a male, I don't know how old, is sending him life-threatening text messages. He says his son is very angry and has damaged his vehicle. So that's who they were talking about. Someone lives at Freshwater Court, so it was JP's son. We don't know which son. Was it the oldest son who has his own mugshot, whose biological mom was from a previous relationship? Not Allison? And that kid looks so much like JP, it's eerie. Or could it have been a different son? I don't know, but it's sad when your own son is so angry with you. His son is likely trying to stick up for Allison, saying, look, send her her money. And I bet you it was over child support. Back in the chronological order of things, November, Micah and JP get married, 2017. Now, not until June 12th, 2018 do we hear JP or someone at the residence calling the cops again. This time it's only because of loud music, lots of cars just being loud, and this must be JP. A caller would like the officer to call him. So that was just a noise complaint. But part of me wonders if JP just thought, even especially back then, he had the cops at his beck and call, like, oh, it's me, it's JP, I want an officer to call me. There's too much noise around my house. Of course, people put in noise complaints, but all these police reports, it gets overwhelming. Now, just 5 days later, there's another call. This time it looks like it's from Allison, JP's ex-wife. This is June 17th, 2018. It says, the caller says her ex-husband is supposed to return child by 6 p.m. today. Said she is outside of his house and he is refusing to return child. She has her custody papers in hand. She's in a white Honda Sonata. So the road supervisor was noted. The caller was looking for an estimated time of arrival. They advised the caller they'll be responding as soon as they could after finishing another call. So back to this June 17th, 2018 melee. And then we'll have a follow-up report. But June 17th, 2018, reporting officer responded to the Coldwater Circle home in Myrtle Beach. This is in reference to a child custody dispute. Very sad for all these kids, all this drama. Once on the scene, reporting officer spoke with the complainant, I'm assuming it's Allison, who stated that JP, the suspect, had not returned their child as per the family court-ordered custody agreement. I love that she had it in hand. She stated that JP was supposed to have their 3 children on Father's Day from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. 2 of the 3 children were returned home at the appropriate time. However, 1 child had not yet to be returned to her. So Allison advised that JP texted her this evening stating that the child did not want to come back and asked if he could keep the child for the week. However, their custody agreement stated that JP was allowed to have the children for a week in each of the months of June, July, and August. However, JP needed to request in writing the week in advance. She declined the request for this week, so Allison didn't want JP to have this kid longer time. And we know why. If you guys go over my previous videos, all the text message exchange between Micah, Allison, John Paul, Allison did not want her daughter doing overnights with JP. And you know why. She told him straight out, look, there were underage girls in that church. According to Allison, it's in her court document. Find the links below to the previous videos and everything. Allison said, look, JP, you confessed to me that you had had inappropriate relationships with underage girls, which is not even a relationship. I shouldn't call it. It's just harassment. It's assault. We know what it is. It's illegal. Girls who were not of age, according to Allison, girls who could not give consent. And that's why Allison had been refusing to let her young daughter even spend the night over JP's house. She wouldn't let the daughter go on, vacations with JP and Micah. And I don't blame her. And now, thankfully, hopefully, some of these women, I don't know if it's the same ones, people are coming forward. According to Fitz News, the latest I've read on this, even though people were afraid to come forward way back then, I hope the statute of limitations hasn't run out. But according to the Scuttlebutt and Fitz News really does their due diligence, they get a lot of things correct. More people are coming out, so expect more trouble for JP. But back to this incident. Reporting officer spoke with JP, who stated that he had asked in advance for the child, and I guess his ex-wife stated that due to her having an injured leg, she told him that he could have the children any week he wanted. JP was unable to provide any proof of this conversation occurring at that time. Both parties had copies of the custody agreement on hand for the reporting officer to review. The reporting officer conferred with Sergeant Furr about the situation. It was determined that due to the court-signed agreement stating that the suspect, JP, only had the children until 6 p.m. on Father's Day, and his ex-wife Allison being the primary custodian of the child, and JP being unable to provide proof of the advance request for having the child for the week, Allison basically was to have her child returned to her. Reporting officer advised JP that failure to return the child may result in family court seeing him in violation of his child custody agreement through family court. So the child was returned to his or her mother, nothing further. There's a follow-up to this, which I like, gives more details. This incident brief report, the follow-up was on June 24th, 2018. It says, the caller says he has court papers of visitation with his children, and his ex is now sending text demanding kids be home at 5 p.m. He's supposed to have them till next Sunday. He has his paperwork in hand. His ex lives at Freshwater, tan house, black trim. It was a silver Honda CRV, a white Honda Accord, but this is what I really wanted. This follow-up, June 24th, 2018. This will tell us what kind of man JP's ex-wife alleges he is by telling their kids inappropriate things about her. It says, on June 24th, 2018, I responded to Coldwater Circle in Myrtle Beach The suspect called this time because the mother had apparently agreed to let the child stay with him this week, and that Officer Kobathan had verified that on the original report date. However, JP stated that he was now being told by someone, the mother of the children, I guess, that she was going to call the police if he did not return them. So they must have both been calling, I'm assuming. JP stated he had not been able to supply Allison, I believe, with the dates that he wanted the children by weeks, since he gets them 1 full week in each summer month. By April 1st, which is the deadline in the agreement, but he still wanted his weeks. So he didn't comply with the court order, with the custody agreement. He didn't give Allison the weeks he wanted by the April 1st deadline, but knowing JP, he still wanted his cake and to eat it too. Thank God he doesn't have custody of any of the children anymore. You know, some of these kids, of course, they're no longer minors. As I understand it, 2 of them are still minors, and Allison has custody of them, thankfully. I did see the text message where she had told him on June 17th, 2018, that he could have some child this week. I spoke to Allison, I presume, who stated that she had sent that before the police were called on June 17th, 2018, and that now she had felt uncomfortable leaving her child with JP because JP had been telling the child mean and inappropriate things about her, which were now causing issues at home. She agreed to allow the child to stay with her dad until Friday, June 29th, 2018, which would then be a week, and that her children needed to be returned no later than the time of day written in the custody agreement, which she believed was 5 p.m. She also wanted me to advise the suspect that she wanted absolutely no further contact with him by any means, unless the contact strictly concerned picking up or dropping off the children or emergency situations. I have advised JP. I also advised both parties that everyone concerned needed to appear in family court and have the custody agreement amended to have a solution for this type of situation where the suspect may have forgotten to supply possible dates of custody to Allison. At this time, the child was left with the suspect, and the complainant is expecting the child back on June 29th, nothing further. That's sad. Allison couldn't get her child back, even though it was past the time, even though JP didn't do what he wanted. Maybe this officer is trying to play nice, but no, that kid should have gone back with his mom. Thank God the kid, the girl, the boy, whoever it is with Allison now. But this is sad. She's alleging JP had been telling the child mean and inappropriate things about the child's own mother. Whew, very sad. Now we're moving up to September 21st, 2018, just a few months later. Now this is really weird here. This must be a neighbor of John Paul's. The caller advised that the elderly lady across the street is 1096, so that's like a mental health issue, and she is in their yard yelling and screaming and thinking his house is a thrift store. The caller advised he is sure she doesn't mean anything, but it's disturbing the household and the neighbors. The subject is a 91-year-old with mental issues. She thought the neighbor's garage was a flea market. The subject's son came to her house to watch over her prior to me leaving the scene. So this 91-year-old woman with mental health issues thought JP's house for some reason was a flea market, and her son came over to watch her, so that's good, her son was with her. But the trouble didn't stop at JP's house. There's a September 25th, 2018 report. The complainant, JP, I guess, lives at this location. His wife lives on Crestwater, a street over. The complainant is supposed to get both children for a visitation. She only has one child available. The complainant's lawyer requests he get a report for mediation. So every time there's some kind of child custody arrangement issue, you know, JP is calling the cops, or his ex-wife might, because they wanted to have it documented. Now, on December 2nd, 2018, JP has a problem with his son. This is very sad. His son, Zachary Miller, who must not be a juvenile because he's named here. They redacted whatever they needed to redact. Now this says the caller advised, JP must have advised the police that he asked his son to complete a job at church he and his wife paid the son to do. He's stating that the son went out of town and didn't do the job. I'm sorry, that makes me laugh. Like, whatever son, JP's alleging his son took his money that him and Micah had paid to do some job at church, and instead the son went out of town and didn't do the job. I'm not saying that's right to do, but I'm saying like a child raised among strife with a dad like JP, I'm sure these children had a lot of issues to overcome. Advised, the son just returned and dad wants the keys to the vehicle back. The son is now breaking things inside the house, smashed a lamp, refuses to give keys back. Advised, the son has threatened him and his wife. The caller and wife have locked themselves in their bedroom. The subject is still in the house. Wow, so that's a lot of trauma, drama. I know certain things were alluded to by Micah and John Paul and trouble with a son in their text messages. Now we can skip all the way. We're leaving 2018. We can move all the way up to 2022, 4 years later, on November 17th, 2022. It seems like John Paul is sending threatening messages to Micah. So we have Micah's name on here. We have John Paul Miller's name on here. It's just weird. It's supposedly John Paul. It says John Paul Miller, or it says John Miller. It blanks out the Paul for some reason. Sending threatening messages to his wife, threatening to harm himself, and threatening her. It says he has brought several firearms in the past few days, possibly driving a burgundy Dodge truck. It involves him threatening to harm himself. Apparently the caller isn't on scene. Third parties not on scene. This incident just happened minutes ago. Weapons were involved. It's not known what type of weapon. The weapon is in the subject's possession. They don't know if anyone needs medical attention. So it's just saying this person intends to hurt him or herself, that he is violent. It's not known if anyone else is in immediate danger. The person lives at this location. They have the description. It says Cherokee has the wife on the phone and she is in their county, and he is telling her that he is coming up there, but they want to make sure he is still there. Advised, the male is going out to truck with trash bags in hand. The male went back inside, made contact with lieutenant, who just wants to know if the truck was at the address. The lieutenant says no suicidal statements were made or received from their end. Also made contact with the suspect, who denied any such suicidal thoughts. So that's a confusing one too. I don't know if John Paul, if that was the incident when he was putting Micah's clothing in trash bags or something. But we have another incident, December 5th, 2022. Now this, I believe we've already heard the 911 call regarding, where Micah's sister wanted a welfare check on her. So it says, problem. Wants a welfare check on her sister because she was released from the hospital in her husband's custody, who mentally abuses her. Very sad. She's calling from Horry County. So that happened again 20 days before Christmas, 2022. Now we move on to about 10 months later, 2023, October 14th, 2023. Now this is really brief. Apparently it's Micah. It's about marital property. The caller advised she wants to speak to an officer about a civil issue, so they patched her over. It's a civil issue over marital property. They referred her to civil court, divorce court. So again, it's involving John Miller and Micah. Just a couple of months later, December 8th, 2023. We've got something going on here, as if maybe this is between John Paul and his ex-wife. I don't know. It just says his wife's brother has his child and won't give it back to him, wants to keep him for the night. So I don't know if this is Micah's brother has John Paul's child. I don't know, but it's listed abduction, kidnapping. He will be in the driveway waiting on the officer. So they were en route to the house. It says baby is staying at this residence with mother. Advised the father to work things out in family court. So while John Paul is like, calling, threatening, oh my goodness, and we're going to get to all these reports in 2024 of hidden cameras and all these threats too, but we're working our way there. John Paul is like, kidnapping, abduction, blah, blah, blah. And the cops are like, look, the child is here with his or her mother, so work it out in family court. Now, moving on finally to 2024. February 7th, 2024. Now this is talking about Micah. The caller is 1096. That's a mental health issue and has a pickup order. She fled to her sister's house in Florence. She also advised me to not go by the house and do a welfare check. So a pickup order, who puts that in? Like when someone is like, go pick this person up. They need to be institutionalized. The caller states that her husband let family members stay at the residence, but she does not want them there. The caller was not at the location and wanted an officer to do a welfare check of the residence and wanted officers to go out to the residence and get the laptop and write down the plate numbers of the vehicles to give her. Have officer call reporting party to speak on what they are able to do. It doesn't give the caller's name, but interestingly it says the problem is the caller states that they have a laptop with naked pictures on it, said that the guests staying at the location. So whose laptop is this? So the caller was at the Buc-ee's gas station. Oh, don't we all love Buc-ee's? The caller is in Florence, said that she owns the house as well, but the husband let them stay there. Apparently JP was letting some people in his family or something stay at the home and Micah didn't want them there. And there's something about naked pictures on a laptop. Are they photos of Micah? Were those the ones that JP posted to Facebook? Caller wanted them to go out to the location, do the welfare check, possibly the same female from blank at the Beach Church at George Bishop Parkway. The caller is 1096 and has a pickup order, and that's when she fled to her sister's house. So that must have been the time when Micah was institutionalized against her will. So now just a couple of days later, February 9th, 2024, it's a civil issue, relayed information through the nurse. So obviously maybe she's already at the hospital now. The nurse would not allow me to see 1017, that must be the subject, Micah, unless I secured my weapons. So it's a civil matter. They talk about 44-year-old John Paul Miller, wants an officer to go to an address and get her belongings and held until she gets out. So Micah was in this, hospitalized. She wanted the officer to go get her stuff until she gets out. Obviously, she was worried about her stuff. It says, going through separation, husband took possession while being hospitalized. She brought items to hospital and he took them and is now texting people on her phone. Caller is in a particular room at South Strand. And that's when the nurse wouldn't let him see Micah unless he secured his weapons. I don't know if he ever did. So, wow. That's sad if an officer couldn't see her and if her possessions were being taken. Now, we have an issue on February 15th where the caller is thinking her husband's in a manic state. So, again, we have 44-year-old 6'2" John Paul Miller. Brown hair, brown eye color. Incident involving a domestic disturbance, violence. The caller, the problem is that she thinks her husband is in a manic state and advises he has beat her and abused her. That part was very sad. Caller advised he is a flight risk, also advised he took her purse, phone, car, and all her guns. Caller thinks her husband is in a manic state. He put his hand on her. He put his hands around her throat about a week ago. Caller advised he was impersonating her identity, and he seems like he's a danger to himself. Caller advised there's weapons in the house. So that's troubling. Micah, from her own words from beyond the grave here, is claiming JP beat her, abused her, and put his hands around her throat. Took her stuff. I mean, that's an indication of trouble whenever there's accusations of strangling involved. It's very sad. And the fact that he is impersonating her. That's what Micah's sister said when he put her away in that institution, took her phone, and then was posting stuff as if he's her. That's why Micah's sister, I believe it was Sierra, is saying, look, this guy took my sister's phone and he's posting on Facebook as if he's her. So this is not in progress, has been going on for a while. Just see where they've been. Previous calls today from the caller. Caller wants to meet in the Azalea Lakes apartment complex. Blue Ford Expedition. Except this is a civil issue and it just says the caller is 1096 and they're talking about mental health issues. At some point, I believe some charges could have been laid here. Let's talk about February 25th, 2024. We're going to see Micah's father getting involved here. It says the ex-wife and her father are trying to get into the house, beating on the door and the window saying, let me in, let me in. Now the caller is in the back bedroom with his sister and 2 dogs. I'm assuming the caller's JP. The caller states that they won't let him out of the house. Caller states the suspect blocked the doorbell camera and they're beating on the door. They can hear the dogs barking. So they named Michael Francis. That's the ex-wife's father. So that's Micah's father indeed. JP must have told them she just got out of the mental hospital. She's not taking her meds. You know, that's his favorite famous line. The caller states they're back in their car in a brown CRV. He says the wife needs help. He wants the father-in-law, I guess, arrested for trespassing. The caller states they're still on the property in the car. The caller states that the police department will know that the wife is mentally ill. JP states there's nothing of hers in the house. Caller states that someone took her vehicle. Now there's an additional caller. The caller, maybe this is Micah. The caller states that someone took her vehicle and that she's at this location and has the car, said that her ex is holding her vehicle. This is when she got out of the mental institution and she had parked her car in this Walmart parking lot. The caller states the vehicle was taken from Walmart off Faro Parkway. She says the male told her to come and pick up the vehicle. The caller's in a Honda CRV. It's parked outside on the curb, so they're on scene. The caller says the suspect ran away from the sheriff back in the beginning on February. Yeah, because she didn't want to be hospitalized against her will. It says she was in the hospital for 5 days but is not taking her meds, according to JP, I'm sure. They're claiming the subject trespassed indefinitely from Coldwater Circle on February 25th, 2024 at around 4:53 p.m. So they're claiming Michael Francis trespassed, but it says the suspect's father was notified he was trespassed from the property. The suspect was also notified she has to prove that the marital property she wants is hers through the court. Both parties were advised to be civil until the court date, nothing further. So I like that Micah's father went with her to help her. And of course it wasn't over. The drama ratcheted up. March 11th, 2024. This is when, you may have heard this before, we've gone over this. This is when Micah started finding razors in her tire. March 11th, 2024, HCPD officers were dispatched to Margarita Drive, so that's Micah's apartment in Myrtle Beach, for a report of a razor blade being placed in her tire at the location of Spring May Drive. A reporting officer spoke with the victim who said this is the second time a razor has deflated her tire in the last week. Now that's very dangerous. I mean, that could have really harmed her. The victim said she was at Spring May Pier around 1:30. She was leaving, she heard a pop, noticed a piece of metal was protruding from her tire. She made it home and found the tire had almost fully deflated at that point. The reporting officer observed the tire, and upon removal of the metal piece, it was found that the metal was a tire deflation device that can be purchased online. The victim believes John Paul, suspect 1, may have placed or had the item placed on her tire. She has noticed strange activity and what she believes as people following her or watching her. She said that suspect 1, who we can presume is JP, has a history of similar actions against her. Evidence was not sufficient to prove that suspect 1 placed the razor device under the tire, nothing further. Unfortunately, those two events, she couldn't get enough evidence to show who put the razor there. The CAD reports of that incident from March 11th, 2024, whom JP claims he has all this evidence about this day. But the caller said she was at court on March 5th, so she just 6 days earlier was also at court, and she got a razor blade in her tire then. The courthouse pulled the videotapes and they did not see anyone around her car, but she had the razor blade in her tire and said it's the same person doing it because this razor blade now looks exactly like the last one. It's under damage, vandalism, mischief. Micah, I'm sure, said she thinks someone put a razor blade in her tire at Spring May Court. Property damage. This one I really wish he could have been stopped at that point. This violence is getting ratcheted up. As you can see, according to Micah, she's getting hospitalized against her will. According to these police reports, her accusations from beyond the grave now, she's saying she was beat, she's saying she was abused, she says she was strangled. That one incident where JP allegedly took her car from the Walmart parking lot and then she showed up with her dad to get the car, she claimed, Micah claimed, JP gave her permission to come get it, and then call the police when they came. It's like he was trying to get her and or her father arrested for trespassing. God bless this father Michael for putting up with this kind of son-in-law. Can you imagine treating your father-in-law that way? Oh my goodness. Treating his daughter so poorly, and then when he comes to try and defend his daughter and get her stuff and everything, JP's calling the cops on Michael to say he's trespassing. Anyway, May 1st, 2024. Now this is unfortunately after Micah was gone. This is where we are in the timeline. John Paul Miller took to the pulpit on Sunday, April 28th, 2024, and he announced that his wife Micah died of self-inflicted the day before, April 27th. So now we're a few days later. This is May 1st, and this is the weirdest. Now this involves John Paul. I don't know what this is about. Suspicious wanted person circumstances. The problem: there are a bunch of young Oriental, and forgive me for saying that, I know the proper word is Asian. This is what the report is saying. There are a bunch of young Oriental females inside the residence. This is the house where the preacher's wife came up 10/7, 2 days after filing for divorce. So I'm assuming 10/7 means missing, out of service, or leaving the air. This is where the preacher's wife came up 10/7, out of service, 2 days after filing for divorce. Suspicious. The caller's name is not given, but it's saying something about sheets. It's saying it's not known if anyone's in danger. Sheets covering all the windows, black car in driveway, possible sex trafficking. I don't know who's making this call. And then it says made contact with the homeowner, who advised everything was 10/4. Officers were able to look inside the residence and nothing appeared suspicious. Owner believes it could have been her husband calling to make complaints on her due to them going through a divorce. I have no idea what this means, so I will just move on. Now we'll move on to May 7th. Finally, we'll get to the video you saw at the beginning. A guy called James. So I guess John Paul must have called the police claiming a male was following him. It's giving, oh, this is where he's going. Caller doesn't know who the suspect is, has been getting death threats. Now by now John Paul has gone viral. People know the horrible way he announced Micah's death. So I'm sure John Paul is paranoid. He probably really has been getting death threats. It says the suspect turned into the pool in the neighborhood, advised the caller to go to grab and go, going off of Palmetto Point Drive. Caller's waving down the officer. He's in a blue pickup. The suspect is still following the caller. This guy James, JP is claiming trespassed on him or his house or something like that, or was just following him. So it says on May 7th, 2024, I, Officer Thornton, responded to the area of Palmetto Point Boulevard in Myrtle Beach in reference to a weapons incident. Prior to my arrival, dispatch advised that the complainant was being followed by a subject and the driver had threatened him with a firearm. So JP is saying, look, this guy threatened me with a gun. The victim advised that he was still driving and being followed by the suspect. Dispatch advised the victim to drive until an officer was able to get out with him. Shortly after, other officers had gotten out with the suspect vehicle, which had pulled into the parking lot. So that's what we saw. The driver, who was identified as the suspect, had given the officers consent to search his vehicle. The victim stated that the male had shown up at his house and was making gestures out the window at him. So JP was scared of what the male might do. So he got into his vehicle and left. He claimed that the suspect had followed him and was waving something out the window he believed to be a firearm. JP stated he was not completely sure that it was a firearm, and it could have been something else. Officers searched the vehicle but did not locate anything inside the vehicle. The suspect was not cooperative with officers, that's what this says, and was eventually told he was free to leave. There was no evidence that the suspect was threatening him or was waving a gun out the window. The victim claimed that he was concerned for his safety due to recent events he was involved in. The suspect was informed he was being trespassed from his own residence on Coldwater, where the incident started. Case is closed. Unfounded since there's no evidence to support the victim's claims. Now that is dangerous. If JP is claiming, hey, this guy's at my house, or he followed me, he's waving a gun at me, well, of course that would make the officers be, at the ready at this guy. But I don't know, that James guy, I couldn't of course hear the conversation, but he didn't seem that uncooperative. He seemed kind. He shook all the officers' hands and he was like, sorry, didn't mean to cause trouble. I don't know if he was really following JP. I don't know if he was really at his house. According to the report, he didn't have a gun like JP claimed, so that could have turned deadly.
It's going to be in reference to the guys been faster from the news lately.
Do you know who this gentleman is behind us?
Yeah, it's some person that I've been hearing about a lot lately, but I've never actually known that to him exist.
Yeah, he's the pastor of the one who's more suspiciously died, but it's full of suicide anyway, so we've been getting a lot of issues lately. The guy in front of us? No. The guy behind us, yes.
No, I know.
Okay.
But
I've heard who he is. Yeah, I've heard.
what? Yeah, he gave me consent. There's no firearms in there. From here? Or? Yep.
Thank you, sir. Sorry to cause combat.
You're good. No worries.
Back up some.
Yeah.
Please don't hit that car.
Can you trespass the James subject from 46 Coldwater Circle? You can just open up a call there at that address and add his information, attach it to it. Clear.
Well, we have that incident location originating at the Coldwater Circle. Do you just put that he was trespassed from this location today?
That was the incident location. I thought it was grab and go here.
Negative. I guess it started off on Coldwater and he went to grab and go.
Good.
I think he gets stemmed off of Coldwater Circle and went to the grab and go.
We're not going back out. Fuck that.
Now we're almost done getting to June 18th, 2024. That's the day HCPD officers were dispatched again to Coldwater Circle in Myrtle Beach for a report of individuals following JP and photographing him. Well, I'm sure the whole world's looking at him now. Daily Mail, independent YouTubers, a lot of people are looking at JP. The reporting officer arrived and spoke with the victim, who stated he's been followed all around town to and from his home and place of work and continuously sees photographs of himself on social media sites. JP said that the post on social media containing photos of his property makes him feel unsafe. JP provided photos taken to reporting officers, which all appear to be taken from public areas. Reporting officer explained the harassment statute to JP, which he understood. He stated he does not specifically know who is taking the photos, but the photos have been posted by one particular individual who resides in Florida. I think we know the YouTuber he's talking about. Reporting officer made contact with this person via telephone, who stated he is an independent journalist who has been reporting on a topic involving JP. This journalist stated he receives all photos from outside sources and does not post or receive photos that he deems to be obtained in an illegal manner. At this time, no actions are believed to be criminal and no suspects are identified as subjects taking photos of JP. So, no YouTuber was arrested there, thank the Lord, huh? We got June 19th, so this is Juneteenth, and JP is still having problems. On June 19th, 2024, a reporting officer was dispatched to Coldwater Circle. The officer met with the victim, JP, who advised that while checking his vehicle, blue in color, a Ford F-150 with South Carolina tag, whatever, he located a GPS tracking device. Isn't that wild? He stated the tracker was under his vehicle, mounted to the frame. He advised he wasn't sure when the tracker was placed and only discovered it once he arrived home. He stated that he hasn't seen anyone following him in the past few days and hasn't seen anyone in his driveway. Reporting officer received the GPS tracker and noticed that the tracker was taped to a high-power magnet to keep it in place. Interesting. Reporting officer took the tracker back to the office and separated the items to obtain the serial number for the GPS. The tracker was made by SpyTech GPS and the model is GL300. Serial number is blanked out. The item was photographed and placed into evidence. The victim, JP, had already handled the tracker without gloves, so the reporting officer will email evidence to see if they can process the tracker itself. Nothing further. So JP's already touching on it, so I wonder who put that there. I gotta look that type of tracker up. I'm just curious. But isn't turnabout fair play? Micah had these trackers placed on her reportedly by a PI JP hired, so isn't it fair play how the worm turns if JP had one tracker placed on his? I don't know if he did it himself and called the police, or if someone else really put the tracker on him, some media person, I don't know, to try and see JP's movements. So now we are almost done. We're going to talk about cameras in the bushes. June 21st, 2024. Reporting officer responded to Coldwater in reference to a suspicious incident. Upon arriving, the officer spoke with JP, who stated he found a black in color portable home camera across the street in the bushes pointing at his residence. He stated that he found it this morning, had already picked it up and brought it inside prior to the officer's arrival. He stated he has a list of people who have been harassing him. So JP's written a list. Oh, isn't this rich? What about the times JP harassed Micah to death? To death. I mean, whether it was at her own hand or not, I believe, okay, I guess it was at her own hand, but she had to feel so scared with those razors on her car and her tire deflated. Who wants to ever think of getting in their car, going at high rates of speed? That could really make her lose control. Anyway, JP has this list of people who's been harassing him. It is not known who or when the camera was placed in the bushes. Reporting officer took pictures of the camera, uploaded them to evidence.com. The victim requested for a report to be done for documentation purposes. Due to no further info, this case will be admin closed at this time. And now, the last one, finally. June 29th. At approximately 3:38 p.m., PFC Barris, responded to a call regarding a potential harassment and stalking incident. Again, isn't this rich? JP is worried about being stalked and harassed as much as he stalked and harassed Micah, allegedly. Upon arrival, I was met by the complainant, who I recognized from a previous encounter with PFC Wheeler. I'm sure they all know JP now. JP informed me that he had discovered another camera hidden in a bush on his property and identified a female suspect whom he had observed through his Ring camera system, so he should have video of this person. The complainant provided a video which the suspect admitted to being caught outside of his house with his garage opened. The complainant also mentioned that the suspect has been following him around town, taking pictures and posting them online, along with false accusations. Complainant provided a video from the suspect's TikTok account where she states to have been, quote, caught outside John Paul's house and, quote, now the garage door is shut. JP was advised to submit the video via a community request. He expressed that he felt his life was threatened due to the suspect's actions and provided evidence of fake websites created by the suspect, which contained defamatory content and false claims about him being a cult leader and involved in criminal activities. The website in question was linked back to the suspect due to it being a link directed from her TikTok account. So JP also provided the suspect's name and address and mentioned that his lawyer had sent her a cease and desist letter. I kind of might know who this is. JP requested to send the video evidence to me and offered to provide additional information regarding the suspect's online activities. Camera was submitted to evidence. Nothing further at this time. Whew, so those are all of them. Let's close with Luke 1:76 through 79. And you, child, will be called a prophet of the Most High, for you will go on before the Lord, the Messiah, to prepare his ways, to give his people knowledge of the salvation by the forgiveness of their sins because of the tender mercy of our God, with which the sunrise, I like that, capital S, the Messiah from on high will dawn and visit us, to shine upon those who sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet in a straight line into the way of peace and serenity. I want to see if we have any new reports. I know John Paul is over there on TikTok. Oh my goodness. I just saw a different headline. He's over there on TikTok giving interviews, something I haven't watched, blaming Micah and whatever for whatever. I don't know if he takes responsibility for anything. I haven't even watched it. But look at this. The Myrtle Beach Sun News has an exclusive. John Paul says, I was the best husband I could possibly be. I somehow really doubt that. Well, I don't have a subscription apparently to the Sun News, so you guys can check that out. He sat down for an exclusive interview to discuss his relationship with his late wife. Okay, so I might have to check that out. That might be a future video. Maybe I'll just link to it below. But again, boy, I don't think he was the best husband he could possibly be. I don't think he was the best husband he could be to Micah. I don't think he was the best husband he could have been to Allison. And I think a lot of these reports bear it out. I don't know what else I will get, but thanks for watching all this. It's just very, very sad. It shows the culmination of so much trauma. In no way am I saying Allison must have been a perfect person and Micah was a perfect person. I'm not saying that. I'm sure, like all of us, we've all made our mistakes. But I don't think John Paul Miller acted in the way that the Bible dictates for husbands to love your wives as Christ loved the church. He's just creepy. It's just sad and creepy, but I do hope he really does turn to his word now that all this is coming down upon his head. I feel like his actions are finally coming upon him after all these years and years and years that God has given him the chance to repent, turn around, just do things differently, be a better person, repent for real. Don't just get on there and blame your wife or whomever, everyone else for all the problems. So anyway, I better end it there. I like to keep these videos at an hour. Only so much space again on this MacBook. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for this and more. The public records are coming in, so I just create the videos as I can. Thank you for watching. Take care.